Thank you all for coming out this evening. I hope you enjoy the show. We've got some great presenters here. I can see how we can miss with these presenters. So I wanted to tell you a round of applause for Dick Preminger and the use of his facility. Without him, we couldn't do this. Thank you, Dick. This flood of 93 in St. Mary's and Kaskaskia Island is being sponsored by the Saline Creek Grading. So I hand a round of applause for them, if you will. On March 25th, we have the LCP project, Appleseed, Revolutionary War, and that one I don't have a sponsor for yet, but we will have a sponsor. So that's March 25th coming up. On April 25th, in this very location, we will have the mouse races again. I don't know if anybody came out to the mouse races last year, but it's a fun time. So we actually have the tracks set up here on the stage. We have mice, and we have like 8 races, and you get to bet on them and see who's going to win. And there's other items going on in the gallery here. And then at the end of the evening, we give away prizes for the winners. We have very few mice get out on the floor, so don't worry about it. Okay, for anybody that came in late, every time we have one of these, if you're not a member of the museum now, the membership, the admittance that you paid at the door, you can go back to the door and buy a membership. And the membership allows you to come to every one of these events without paying. It allows you to come through the museum and bring grandchildren. And there's different types of membership, but you don't have to pay every time you come in. And we have 2 of these a month normally, so it doesn't take much to pay for the membership. If you go back to the door and tell them you'd like to apply the amount you paid this evening to come in, we'll take that off of the membership for you this evening. So this evening we're going to talk about the flood of, we're going to have some 73 and 93 in there, of St. Mary and Kaskaskia Island and how it changed the area. Our presenters, the Donzes, we got a city clerk that was there that was in the middle of it the whole time, and we had Clem who was there the whole time also. We got Fern Bowman here who was overseeing all of it up here, and we'll kick in. He was down there, I think, Bernie, you were there when the levee broke, is that correct? In a helicopter? He had chopper time, he was in a helicopter when the levee broke. So what we're going to do is we're going to play clips. Mindy's back on the computer, she's put this together for us. We will play clips, and we'll stop that clip after a certain piece of it, and Clem and Joanne and anybody else in here that has something to say about it, we'd like you to participate. We'd like to hear what went on there. We're at a point now we can watch it and not cry about it. We're going to stop right there, and we're going to let Clem and Joanne tell us what they've seen and things they remembered about that. And anybody in the crowd that would like to participate, if you raise your hand, we'll bring the microphone to you so we can hear what you got to say. Joanne?
Well, I think that Stanley Hurst here, he lived on the island. I think Stanley can give us more of what really is happening on Kaskaskia Island. Stanley?
Yeah, it was a pretty good mess it was. I mean, it seemed like we just stayed up day and night to try to do sandbags and stuff, but it just one of those things we lost. Oh, but Ben Figure took a boat over there, and he pulled them in the boat. He did all he could. He could get them out of there. I know some of them drowned. He couldn't do it, you know, do all of them. Yeah, there's someone in church too. There's a cow in church, and when people talk about holy cow, I don't have a picture, but there's a cow in church that were.
We also wanted to tell you that these videos, thank goodness to somebody getting them. Bob and Henrietta Bartles donated these to the museum.
Yeah, I think we're ready. It's Mindy.
On Kaskaskia Island, 9 miles south of St. John, they also fought the river all night long. But come Thursday morning, the battle was over.
It was an amazing sight, the Mississippi River flexing its seemingly unlimited muscle. Dozens of homes and other buildings, including the town's church, all underwater. Some islanders believe the flood will be the death of a community whose history goes back nearly 200 years.
Now, all of the island's inhabitants, human and animal, are forced to take refuge on the only high ground available, the levee which has failed them.
Yeah, there's water on the whole island and all around the dike. Probably the only part right now that does not have water on it are the very high ridges on the center, and then the water is going to continue coming up. It's continual rain up north, and a lot of dikes have broken both north and south. So I'm sorry to tell you how we lost everything. But
but they didn't let them even have time to put on a pair of shoes.
I'm waiting for my husband to come across. I haven't heard from him since he called me at 10 to tell me the levee broke.
You know, something happens, and you can do no more. You will. You have to. You have no choice. That was yesterday. Now you pick up and you go on from today.
Okay, so we've seen quite a bit of devastation. One of the things I think that I want to talk about, and that is, if you watch the waves throughout this video, it was rainstorm after rainstorm, and I'm not talking small rains. It was 2 and 3 inch rains, and they came down, and then the winds would pick up, and the winds were what was as bad as anything, as I remember it. Joanne?
Well, since we didn't live on the island, we didn't know about that. Stanley, can you there at that time? Well, tell us.
Yeah, like Robert said, it didn't rain lightly. I mean, when it come down, it come down. And when we just kept saying we just got to quit, but it didn't do it. No, it did not quit. It just kept coming. And the wind, that's what tore most of the stuff up over there. If it wasn't for the wind just destroyed stuff. Yeah, stars would come, just one after another they'd come.
All right, I am Sheila. I am Mary and Stan's daughter. I was 10 at the time, but I remember we were getting stuff out of the house. They were, I wasn't. And they got as much stuff into the truck as they could, took it over to the levee, got it to a place safe, but anything they couldn't get out by the time the water started coming in, they took to the upstairs. And we had a 2-story house. So, okay, you're safe with a 2-story house, right? Well, all that storm, wind, rain started coming. The crest kept going up and up and up. And they finally, they took barges over?
Yeah.
You're going to have to help me. I was 10. Yeah, so was it the Army Corps? Who was it? The Army Corps? Yeah, so the Army Corps took barges over with the people. Oh, is that a picture of it? Okay, yeah. So they took the barges over and broke windows in the upstairs of all the houses that they could and started hauling more stuff out. Yeah, I think that was Herb and Paula's house. Herb and Paula Klein. I'll give it back. How many people lived on the island at that time?
The question is, how many people lived on the island at the 93 flood?
At 75?
In the 72 floods, there was closer to 200 in the 72. And it failed in 72, it failed on the west side of the island. In 73. In 93, it failed on the river side of the island, the east side. And whose farm was that on the west side when it farmed, was it? Yeah.
West side was Craig Dozo's dad, and Craig Dozo, Merrill Brown farmed what was called the Layton's Tract, just south of Puget. Then the old dad, Rose's second house.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a Shirley Drop. So
Well, it broke when it,
initially it broke the fuse on. I was
Yeah.
on the barge,
that was in 72.
73, April of 73. We was trying to get a Alice Chandler, there's a WD Alice Chandler tractor that's converted to a grader. If you've seen them.
Okay?
John Nelson, most people know him. He had that tractor sitting on the levee at Q-Job. He wanted to recover. We went over, Charlie, you have the pilot on the Corps of Engineers barge.
Yeah, it was Corps of Engineers who furnished the barge
But
for down
the
there.
water was, we had maybe, I'm not sure, we had, at that point, Q-Job, we maybe had a foot of left. The barge set up high, we never even cracked it on. We could get it up there, but then the blade would drag, so we had to leave it.
Yeah.
And when the levee broke, it ended up probably, I must say, maybe 600 to 800 feet down behind what was the old school in Q-Job with Craig Dillon, or Danny Langford with us now. It was out in the field behind there, and it was total, I mean, it rolled it down through there.
You said in 73?
73.
Yeah, that's,
I wish I'd known that.
yeah.
I went on the slide. Matter of fact, Clem and I went up in an airplane that afternoon. But Tom Delacy took us up. And I got a ton of pictures from the plane. And then later, I went over on the barge.
In the 73 flood.
Yeah, and it was probably, I'm thinking, you said 200, there was at least maybe 300 people that lived over 73. It was pretty well populated at that point for the island.
Right.
But after the 73 flood, like Stan said, considerably less than 90.
Right. Now, I can tell you a little bit about the 93 flood. When it breached, you've seen the tree disappear in that film. I saw that in 93 on the west side, east side of the island. And I happened to have chopper time with the Corps, Army reserves were here, and they had helicopters. And we flew over different things and checked different levees from time to time, including Perda Rocher. We flew over that several times. But when I happened to be going down to the marina, who was having a heck of a fight, the farmers in St. Genevieve on Levee District 2, their effort was put on not letting it break along the Mississippi River between St. John and Kaskaskia. And they wanted to keep it from breaking there and topping and possibly make a new channel. Right, right. So whenever that levee broke, Ron Inman was coming back, and I was on the Marina Road going down, and he come in. I was talking to Donnie Jack about he was running some pumps there for the farmers, and he come running. Ron got in his pickup. The chopper pad was the parking lot at the marina. That's where the reserves made their base, and they had some barrels with some ropes along it, and to keep the traffic going straight through. And then they used the parking lot for a pad. Anyway, Ron come flying through. He stopped real. I was picking Donnie Geck up at the bridge there at the railroad tracks going to the marina, and he stopped real fast. He said, "Ernest, she's going right now." And we went down, and we could get on we had the next ride out, and we got down there, and what I seen was first when we got there that I don't think the break was as wide as maybe the bottom here, but then there would be like a crack in you could see a crack in the white gravel, maybe 10 or 12 feet back, and then that would just slide down and disappear. The tree that I seen disappear was the size of this table, 3 foot in diameter, I would say. And the water was just digging in or just diving around them. It looked like on that 3 feet, it fell maybe 3 feet from the top of the tree here to where it was waving out like that. And it wasn't long after we circled for a little bit, and 10-foot section fell off over here and another section fell off over there. And at that time, the river was, the flood waters was just like if you took your arm and went like this, it was a quarter long when we got there out. It was just going over the beams. The beams were probably about the height of these tables. They just kept disappearing. And it just kept going. But then what's in that tree, and the levee got wider, the break got wider, and finally one of them trees went, and we went and just slowly went down, and it just never quit going down. It totally disappeared. When it come out, it was about 200 yards in that field, about from the levee, that it came to the top, and it was just way bouncing the whole tree. The limbs were broke off, a lot of them. The roots didn't have a piece of dirt on them. There wasn't a piece of dirt on the roots. They're just solid black roots. Everything was washed off. But rabbit mackerel was in on that one tree there. I've seen it disappear on the film before, and I hadn't seen this one in '93 disappear yet, but I did see it in '93. But anyway, Rabbit Mackin was the sheriff, and Penny Piku was a sheriff for Illinois, and he done a lot of hog rescue and stuff. He told about the hogs all around in different places and everything. Whose pens were there? Some of you guys know. Yeah, there was more than one.
Most of them were Elmer Ross.
Elmer Ross, okay. Okay. Anybody else got anything on Kaskaskia here? Yes.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
There are huge on 73.
But anyway, at Puget in 73, like I say, we were on a barge trying to recover a tractor. Well, it broke maybe 100 yards south of us. And again, Charlie Bill was the pilot. But it was within just a matter of maybe 15 minutes, it went, like you say, just a small gouge that fell in, and it just kept widening out. And probably, I'm going to say, maybe 2 hours later, when Clem and I were up in a plane, John Bell said, that thing was probably 150 feet wide, and by that time it had also broken down at Shirley Rocks. And the same thing there, we could just watch the levee disappear as the current comes through there. And
I think
devastating.
We counted 8 breaches, 8 breaks in total. In 7
But somebody asked earlier if there was any fatalities. In 73, there was no fatalities at that time. But some of you may remember Mike, when Vernon was a kid and he had a severe heart attack, Sam that in 73. And I'm not sure, I think it was September, when he had to have an open heart surgery and didn't survive. So he would have been, to my knowledge, he was the only human fatality, as a result of the 73 flood.
Yeah, so like Mr. Bowman, so in 73, Grandma Kasu lived across from the church with Uncle Lonnie, so they took care of the bell. I mean, Alvin was saying that he remembers, the barn floating off and Grandma Kasu's, house got destroyed by the wind. But, Uncle Lonnie took care of the bell for so long. What happened? Was the bell removed, or did they throw it to the church, or does anybody know? Like where the Liberty Bell went?
It stayed in the shrine. It actually fell off this pedestal, but it stayed within the shrine.
It did?
But again, it fell off the pedestal.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They said the crack got worse when it fell.
That could be. I just know it fell off the pedestal during the flood.
Yeah, that's a little hard to float a bell off. But going a little further here, at first, I'd say we circled maybe for 20 minutes or 25. But at first it was like I said, maybe a quarter or half a mile out. After about 10 minutes, it was quite a bit wider. And then after then the news media started coming, and he got calls, apologies to start evacuating people and rescuing people on the island. But when we left, it was probably 3/4 of a mile out, like you spread your arm. It went in all directions. And it was probably at the levee where it was coming through, it was probably 6 or 8 feet higher than the fields were. But yet it was only about a mile out. And some of the water ahead of it, them little oxbows and the little coulees and little old sloughs, they were full of clear water. Some of it was running clear ahead of it. It was pushing the clear water. And the rest of it was as murky as the Mississippi. So a little bit more murky because it dumped a lot of dirt out. That hole turned out being close to 80 or 90 feet deep, I think it said. Most of them get about that deep. And one of the farmers that they lost the levee there at the county road there going to the big field. At the end of that, they lost the levee, and that one was about 90 or 100 feet deep. And in that one, when we found, when we walked over, and it had about 80 to 100 acres of sand. Some of the sand at the center of it was probably about 8 feet deep. And in that, there were some large chunks of coal. Now, there's a lot of coal in Illinois, and there's coal apparently under the Mississippi between here and St. Louis, because that was broken loose in layers. They do leave layers of, Illinois coal layers. Some of them are 6 or 8 feet deep, but a lot of them are 2 or 3 feet deep, thick of coal. But there was a lot of chunks of coal and some big chunks. And then, of course, it's smaller fragments too. But that was, I think, the river between here and St. Louis digging a hole somewhere else that broke through a coal layer of coal. Okay, I better quit.
One of the other things I think that was interesting, Bernie, was when the Valley Springs levee broke, August 1st, the Valley Springs levee broke, and the water that we were getting up by my office at that time was coming from Kaskaskia Island. It was backing up through that side. What was the difference between the height of the river out there and where the Valley Springs was at?
Okay, if you went to the Marina Road, the Mississippi River on the upstream side of the road at that time was about 3 feet higher than the river on the back up from, because it really didn't back up only from Kaskaskia. It backed up from the lower end of Kaskaskia back. So that was about close to 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet. And there was a lot less water on that Valley Spring levee. That was a mile from 61 to the Marina Road. And but when it failed, we was doomed to lose that day. It was. We had 3 efforts here in St. Genevieve: the center of town, north end of town, and south end, and that was in the south end. And that day, it failed right at the Marina Road. But prior to that, we had a call out. We was having our lunch dinner meeting, and we went down there, and there was a crack in the center of Valley Spring levee, about halfway between 61 and Marine Road. And it's one of us come down and check that, and Lloyd and the group, Bill Beckerman and the group, was fighting the sand wall where it failed. And that's where it's bringing out a lot of mud, a lot of sand with it, and it was ringing it. And it got up 3 or 4 or 5 feet, and it was making, and it finally busted out, and it just blew out, and wasn't long the front of the truck went down. And then the center levee went down. But we had lost that levee that day or next day, one way or the other, because the center of the road, as we went down about halfway, there was a crack about the length of this, from the back bar to the stream, in the middle of the levee, that was about that wide, and then it sunk down about 6 inches into one side. And that would have been hard to combat that. Side dump trucks would have probably maybe helped. But anyway, that was there, but it had failed before that, had a chance to break there, and it failed, and it was like a groundhog go. And when Bill Beckerman was throwing, it was getting sandbags to ring the levee at the bottom of the dry side, supposedly. And then all of a sudden the vortex started here. And whenever that ring levee broke and fell apart, then it started sucking water, and there was a vortex in the pool, where on the high side of the levee. And when Bill Beckman threw a sandbag in there, it squirted out and flew up in, almost didn't fly up in the air, but it came out in the water below. That's how fast it made a hole. And after that, the front end of the truck went down, and then the whole truck went down after that. So that's how that happened. But it takes many a ton out, and the road sharp long. It's all saturated, and when it goes, that water takes over.
Okay, so there was a lot of scary times standing on the levee down at Kaskaskia Island, and you had water on both sides of you. And how much freeboard do you have then?
In 93? 93 we had quite a bit, but 73 was just, well, there's nothing there. Yeah, just about it.
You had about a foot of freeboard, and you were walking down the levee, and there was water on both sides of you. It was pretty scary. And we're talking about, there was a lot of people there helping, and nobody left. Everybody stayed. So
24/7 we would. I mean, just day and night we throw. I don't know how many toothpicks I used to keep my eyes open to keep it going. We all took turns and everything, but I was in mid-bed that morning, and Eddie Mickey called me. He said, "Dan, it just broke." I said, "Oh my God."
So we have a lot of stories. The one story I can tell that, thank goodness it broke down there for us in St. Genevieve. My office at the end of 61, the water came up to the windows on the outside of the building, and it stopped. The only thing that I had left as freeboard was the sill, the window sill. If it would have come up 2 more inches, it would have poured into the building. So that was the difference between it, though, because Bernie was telling me that it broke down there, and we got 3 foot water, less water on this side of that than we had on the other side. And it came all the way up the windows. If it wouldn't have been that, it would have went up to the roof. So, and then we had a lot of people that were in town that were from different radio stations in different countries. And we were hauling sandbags one night down on the Valley Springs levee. And the waves were what so bad. The wind got so bad, and the waves were lapping up there. And we would take sandbags on our 2-ton trucks, drive down in there, and throw them off of the truck so you had something to drive on, because the water was going across the top of the levee. And I was down at Valley's Desert, and a reporter from France asked me, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm taking a load of sandbags down to Valley Springs levee." He said, "Can I ride with you?" I said, "Jump in." Well, what he didn't know is that the way to get to Valley Springs levee was to go down by the marina, and they took the guardrail out, and you drove right off the end of that thing. I mean, it was straight down. And then when you come down to the bottom, you had what, Bernie, a couple hundred feet before you had to make that corner on the other end? And I had been down it about 2 or 3 times, And I still puckered up when I went home. So he was in there, and I drove up to that thing and drove over the top of that, and we went straight down, and that guy was screaming and yelling. When we got to the bottom, I had to pry him off the dash. But he jumped out of there, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I ain't riding with you, I'll tell you that." I don't know how he got back, but we left from there. I never seen him again. And there was a lot of those stories that go around on Kaskaskia and every place. Somebody else got a story to go with it? Anybody?
Hey,
Back in St. Mary's and everything, we went over and helped them fight the levee. We about wore out, and then we had to come back to St. Mary's and started, and we had quite a few people come up from Perryville, and people volunteered you wouldn't believe would. It's unbelievable. I mean, families, wives, everybody. It was together.
Yes, it was. Somebody back here?
It's not my story, it's my old boss's story. He's retired now, but he was with the Corps, and he was out there flood fighting with Herb Klein and Derek, who's over there underneath the light there hiding. And Derek, how old were you?
14.
He was 14.
When the levee broke, I had 1 month and I was turning 15.
And Herb Klein's dog was out there too, flood fighting. We have a picture of it.
Both of them.
2 dogs. And Mark Alvey, he retired a couple years ago, geotechnical engineer. And every time he talks about 93 and Kaskaskia, it's hard for him because he was out there until it broke and was still probably trying to fight it even when it was breaking. And he said that it started out as a really small boil, something that's really manageable. And I think
got away 5 minutes before it blew out and he was there.
Yeah, 5 minutes before it blew out. I think overnight it had gotten a little rough, the sand boil did, and then they stabilized it, and then it started bubbling up again. And Mark said that they would throw a sand bowl into it, or a sandbag into it, and it would shoot the sandbag.
Just like what Vern was talking
back
about,
out.
blow it right back out.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, the top of the levee, in the middle of the levee, caved down and shut that sand bowl off. We didn't realize that the levee was hollow that night. Me and Dad stayed on that all night long. It could have he was a beast in 93 with what he did with that digger, and that guy right there is a beast. that takes courage, but it's also, you don't want to lose what you fought for all summer. That's what it's all about. We didn't know that we just had to do what we had to do. That's what that was all about. It was, looking back, we shouldn't have sat there all night, but Dad wasn't leaving. And it slowly just filtered it back out, and then it was the same situation as they had the night before, and by then the whole berm was squirting water out, and they couldn't see it. I was the first one in line, and I said, "Dad, look at this berm back here. We gotta go." And the whole berm was floating, had water squirting up, and
like a water bed, right?
we just got out there in time. We would all die. Everyone was. Albie was down there with us. I don't remember how many was in that photograph, but I still got that.
I know you're in
They took
it.
from a chopper.
Yeah, it looked like it was from the levee. You and Mark, I both showed the photo and they had identified people, but one of the photos is you handing the sandbag to your dad, and the black dog was in the photo too.
Yeah. Held them night and day.
A nightmare. Mindy? Mindy, can you stop it there for a second, please? So what are we looking at here, Clem?
I have no idea.
We got this clip from somebody else, sorry.
Now let's fix our lady green.
What we're looking at there, that's the end on the right side of the screen is the end of the scar hole. That's a little bit similar. Now I can see the church in Kaskaskia in the background there. So that's the Kaskaskia, but all the breaks are the same. In '93, the flood in San Genevieve that broke through for the farmers at the county road down there straight in from Water Supply. That was very much exactly like that. It was just, it scarred. Like on the left, it would be, the farmers down there, it was between 90 and 100 foot deep. And it was probably a quarter mile to the end of the hole on the right. And there, of course, it wasn't so deep, but it put over 100 acres of sand. And it went for about a mile to the end of it as it went that to the right. And it was about 6 foot deep, 6 to 7 foot deep in the center. And the farmers went and they would have had their tractors and nothing to do, but they bought scrapers and stuff and they put all that sand back in the hole, built the levee back. That's how that got fixed. The close dirt, which is most economical, I think that's a D8 there, I think, and there's a couple more there. You can doze for up to 400 feet or 500 feet with a dozer that size. Cheaper than you can with a scraper, but then it turns around. The further you go away, the higher $1 per yard, cubic yard is, so you need different equipment for different distances.
Okay, Mindy.
Flooded out big time. That building right there is Bartle's old hardware store. About up to the first pane of glass, as you can see. And then next door to that is Ray's Pizza House, St. Mary's local grease spot. Also the illustrious conference center of the annual Pioneer Dealer Meeting they have there every year. Ray's picked up his shop and moved a little bit higher ground, still in business. And there's downtown, heading out of town, I should say, on the south end. So as you go that way, it gets a lot deeper. These guys have probably had this diked off now for about 2 weeks. Here's Bob's bank. Protecting it quite well. Post office has been moved. And then there's Bob's building sitting high and dry so far. This is quite a sight though. They said this morning, there's a local MFA call, they said this morning that the water was up to the doorway, or at least at the catwalk on the co-op building this morning, but the levee out on Kaskaskia Island that butts up against the river broke, which freed up some space and dropped the water level here a little bit. And that is why you hear all the commotion to the back of me. We're trying to build this dike up a little bit higher to protect what they might feel is the onslaught of some more water coming into the town. From what we've been told, there's a bunch of grain in the tanks there, so they're trying to protect that also. We took a trip out onto Kaskaskia Island. What they say is the levee out there broke. It's almost about a mile wide now, that's what we're hearing. And the flow of water going in there is incredible. See if we can catch some action. Okay. So we're right on 61, heading out of town like you're going to St. Genevieve. This is where the barges are letting people off of Kaskaskia Island. It's about 4:30 right now. And they say about 9:30, 10 o'clock this morning, that's when the levee broke on Kaskaskia Island. So trying to get a lot of folks that were still living on the island off. They had felt that they might be able to make weather out the storm, but the levee was pretty secure and would protect them. And for the most part, all they had out there on the levee, on the island, was just sea water. So we were just out there probably an hour ago, and it's many, many feet deep already. So they're desperately trying to get off what people were out there off. There's the bridge that's completely underwater that takes you up to the island. Got everything diked up pretty good around the co-op here, trying to protect the grain. And here we're looking back downtown. We're trying to build that dike up a little high to protect downtown area. It's going to take them weeks to clean all this up once the water comes down. Slip around back now. Here, that'll give you another perspective. The pan out of the town. There's Ray's Pizza House. Back around this corner, you've got the sandbagging crew. There's Bob and Charles off in the distance. Got the sandbagging crew up here. And then up the Red Cross again, trying to feed the crews. And there's the back box thing, the office building and post office. Trying to build the dike a little bit higher to maybe compensate or offset higher water coming in from the levee breaking out on Kaskaskia Island. A lot of people working pretty hard. This road that I'm on is as if you would come out of Bob's driveway and turn right and come down the hill. You see right there the water stuff right just blocking where his office and bank are. Looks like the Mississippi cuts right up into St. Mary's here. Cat going to load up some more sandbags, take to the troops. Here's some of the people coming off the island with their belongings. Down I was talking to a guy in Ray's makeshift restaurant there who set a brand new trailer sitting out on the island. Couldn't be able to get any of the stuff out, I don't think. Lost it all. Got Bob and Charles bringing some clouds in, it looks like. And you get somebody pedaling right down 61 highway. Old schoolhouse. Somebody's truck, slightly submerged. Right now we're waiting on a barge to go hop on the island. That's the road that takes you to the island. The house is going to eat a bunch of water. Float down the highway.
Tommy, take your picture, buddy. Walk over the camera, guys.
Here we are, a week later, going out to the island by March. The road right beside us that we normally carry out there. Right in here, we are very deep. This bridge sits pretty high above the ground. I'd say the water here is about 20 feet deep. 15 to 20 feet. Okay, here we are 1 week later, looking out over the island. When we were here last week when the levee broke, you could still see corn standing. The water was about 1 foot from taking the top of the corn, but it was a slug of corn out all across that area there. And now it's just nothing but water. It's like a darn lake. Bob's pieces of property there that he's renting to a family. He said it's busted up in a couple pieces now from where the water has lifted the home off its foundation and kind of worked it around. This is a very nice home. And if you roll this way, this
got individual photos now, Mindy? Great.
Okay, this is in 1951. These are the 51 pictures of St. Mary's. This was Catwolf's Tavern. Oh, this was Catwolf's Tavern. And of course it's not there anymore, but that was in 51. Right as you come off the Churchill. And this is looking north. This would have been down in the bad curve, looking north, and that Barbara's Elevator and several nice homes. In 1951, there were a lot of homes in this area. And this is what it looked like in 1951. And this is the same picture almost, I think, looking south. This is in 73 though. This is 73. And this is in 73 also. And you can see Bartles Hardware and the funeral home across the street there also. And the next building would have been the building that Ray Reese with Patty's Cafe in. Pizza House, rather. This is the water in 1973 also. And it had 3 more feet to rise before it got up to where it ended. And this is an aerial of 1973, looking north. We still have the lumber yard there in St. Mary then. Somewhat of the same pictures. This one's looking south. The Kaskaskia Bridge in 73. Now this is showing the Kaskaskia. Clem took some of these pictures from the air. You can see where there's still people there, you know, that don't have water. They still got their farms and everything. This was their makeshift telephone booth pole for the people that were down working the flood so they could talk. They're very nice man.
Somebody suggested that, you know, we need a phone or anything. Jim Halley was the telephone man for St. Mary's, and he would do anything for anybody. The Lord has taken him since then. But anyhow, we could call in or call out of there, and of course it's coming off my number off at the store. It was very useful.
Now this is the way it flooded. You see how it's coming in, the water's coming in, but it still hadn't gotten to the church or anything in 1993.
Back up on that last photo, if you would. Okay, see the clear water on the right at the upper end? Them 2 sloughs or coulees. There you can see what I was talking about a while ago. The water, dirty water is behind it, but it pushed some clear water ahead of it. That's kind of interesting.
And you can see the pace of the water, how fast it's flowing. It's almost unbelievable when you look at it from the sky, how fast it moved. This one. Now who is this one here? Stanley.
Ralph, you know it?
What's that?
Which one's that there?
I don't recognize it.
I don't either.
That's 93. Clem and I took a lot of pictures in 73 like that, but I don't recognize that one.
No, I don't either.
Is that the end of it, Mindy? Okay. So if we want to turn up the lights and we can listen to anybody who has a story to tell us about it, we'd love to hear it. And if you raise your hand, I'll bring you the microphone.
I just have a question about how many of the pigs were saved. My heart is bleeding for the poor pigs. Does anyone know, like, were any of them saved? They were all saved.
I'm just guessing. Ralph, do you remember how many pigs were saved?
I do not. They lost about as many as they saved. I know that.
Yeah, I know they had a lot of them on that barge, but there's a lot of them floating around out there. A few of them. They were. I can't tell you the number.
So I I was with Landmark Glass, me and David Walker. We manned the pumps down at the bank, Bar Bobby Bartles, in the evening. And so that one pump down there, it was running between 250 and 300 gallons a minute of seawater coming in into the basements in those buildings, and ended up saving those buildings for him. But also with Landmark Gas, we went out, I can't remember if we pulled 10 or 15 propane tanks off of the island that were over there. We had a 16-foot John boat with a little 25-horse motor on it. We strapped 2 big propane tanks on both sides, loaded them in that way, unloaded them right there at the co-op. So I was down there for a long time, probably about 2.5 or 3 months.
I know what you're saying with moving sand bags out of the burrows. How many PSIs is underneath there blowing them out there? Have you had the idea? I mean, it's going to be pretty. You think it's a couple thousand PSIs or better? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Like when Valley Spring levee broke, for example, that flooded about 250 acres, give or take. If you take the volume of water in Mississippi, that would have been only a few seconds. If you could have just took the river and filled that, it would only took a few seconds for the Mississippi River to fill that 250 acres. And Kaskaskia, I never did figure that out. That would be amazing. It wouldn't take long. I bet you in a few hours. Yeah, from Mississippi at St. Louis, both floods, they go by cubic feet a second. Water that passes through St. Louis at a certain point was over 1 million gallon cubic foot a second. And there's about 8 gallons of water to a cubic foot. So there's a lot of millions of gallons.
Since we're about done talking about the water, or not really, to add to it, all these people had no place to go to live, St. Mary's thing, and the Corps of Engineers told the chamber and the fire department in the city, if we get pads ready, we would get trailers. Well, we got probably between 40 and 50 mobile homes and stuff, and they said, let us know when you get them finished. And believe it or not, the Corps, they were moving it in almost immediately. And when it was all over with, then some of the people actually was able to purchase at a wholesale value the trailers. And then on top of that, the Chamber of Commerce owned property on the corner of H and 61. And any of the victims that were a flood victim, we would actually give them the lot. And also Boston Funeral Home at that time was flooded out. And the guy with the station, he was, and all that, the chamber just gave him the ground.
Anybody else? Hold on.
In 1973, my sister was a student teacher down at St. Mary's in the school, and she told me that they had to take a boat over to get their stuff out of the classroom, and all the kids were bused to Bloomsdale. And I was just wondering, does anybody else know anything about that I could relate back to her? Do you know, Joanne?
What was the question, Joanne? Was it the public school?
The school was already shut
shut down in the 73 flood, I'm pretty sure, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Judy went to school there, and she had her sophomore year, she had to go to, out to finish the seminary, went to Perryville her junior year, St. Jean her senior year, and she graduated in 67. So I'm backing up to 65. The school was probably already shut down. Yeah.
I had that problem with high schools too. I went through quite a few of them in my career.
The poor kid never gets to go to a reunion. No, she probably couldn't name 2 of her classmates from Paris, Illinois. Yeah, sad.
From the school down there, but that was from what, was that the 73 part of that was from?
Those old at that time was used for a terminal for his trucks, if anybody recall. Yeah, Elmer Dozo owned that, and he actually, the back end of the gymnasium, he had made the doorways there. That's where he worked on a lot of his trucks in 73. That's what it said, Elmer Dozo.
And you said you did what?
Just kidding. I was kidding. I shut down the Catholic schools.
So you were responsible for that, huh?
A little bit different flood, but in 93, the Orris Theater levee broke about 2 weeks after the Kaskaskia levee. And one of the Corps engineers' truck was on the brake when it broke. It swept him down across the bottles. And he crawled out of there and crawled up on a levee somewhere else. He made it. Yeah, that was a pretty good story.
Yes, it was. I remember that one on the news. He was parked right where it broke, didn't he? Yeah.
Might add a bit when people was talking about the damage of the waves. People don't realize the hydraulics of water. Yeah, whenever you get, say, 10, 15 mile an hour wind like they did on the island, we was getting 3-foot white cap waves. That's what tore up a lot of the homes. The still water didn't do it. It was the hydraulics of the, well, I mean, it was unreal. I seen, we went back over the next day after 73. I seen homes floating away, and back, seen them just destroying homes because of the wind. Yeah, exactly. It was sad.
And that's what Bernie and I was talking about it down on the Valley Springs levee. We had all that wind coming up through there, nothing to break the wind, and it would hit that levee and just beat the hell out of it. And we kept fighting that, trying to keep ahead of it, and eventually it got us. So, anybody else? Okay, we thank all of you for coming out. Bernie, Clem, Joanne, all of you, thank you very much for participating. It was a good story. We appreciate your coming out and joining us. Again, thanks to Dick for being this, letting us use this facility. And then to our sponsor for this program, again, I gotta find my piece of paper. Saline Creek Grading. Thank you, Saline Creek Grading, for that.